Right. Okay, so when you move on to question 11, and maybe earlier on in the paper, there are 10 ratios that you need to know on this course. So the profitability ratios, gross profit margin, operating profit margin, we need an income statement for those two. ROIC, we need a balance sheet and an income statement. Then we've got the solvency ratios or the liquidity ratios. Current ratio should be 2 to 1. The asset test ratio should be 1 to 1. And low gearing is under 50%. So those three here, these three here, ROIC, liquidity, gearing are the big three. We've also got 4 more down here. These are all numbers. Stock turnover, we want this number to be as high as possible because that means that we're turning over our stock as quickly as possible. The asset turnover is how hard we are working our assets. Once again, we want this number to be as high as possible. And then trade debtors, how long it takes people to pay the business. And trade payables is how long we pay our debts. Now, in this case, we're probably going to have a cash flow problem because people are not paying this business for 60 days, but we're paying money out straight away. So this is where the current ratio comes in. So we've got a little example down here of the current ratio and the asset test ratio. I've just realised that the figures that I've got on there are incorrect. But if the current ratio was 2 to 1, then the current assets will be twice as much as the current liabilities. And the asset test ratio here is 0.5 to 1. In fact, it's not. The current ratio is 0.5 to 1 and the asset test ratio is 0.25 to 1. But those are the 10 ratios that you can be asked on the last question. Okay, thank you. They tend to ask, though, ROIC, liquidity and gearing, but they can ask these as well. Next one on here is a balance sheet. So this is a question that previously came up in an exam. Once again, a balance sheet tells us absolutely nothing about the profit. Okay? If we knew what the profit was, then we will be paying more for the business. So, assuming it's making a profit. Right, so Debbie has been told that she's got to pay £88,000 for this business. So once again, with a balance sheet, non-current assets come to 25,000 quid. The current assets, which is stock and bank, come to £56,000. There's the current liabilities, which is £29,000. So therefore, we have a current ratio of, we have current assets minus current liabilities of 27,000 quid. Right, this is also called working capital on here. However, if we then worked out the actual ratios, which you don't need to do in the exam, but you could do, you can very quickly see that, okay, the current ratio is 2 to 1, but most of these are stocks, okay? And we might not be able to get the full price for those stocks. Our stocks may not be worth 50,000 quid. So if we take stocks off here, we get an asset test ratio of 0.2 to 1, which is really 6,000 quid divided by £29,000. And then we got the net assets, which means the business is worth £52,000. So therefore, why are we paying £88,000 for a business that's only worth £52,000? There are no long-term loans, so the gearing will be 0%. What we don't know is how much the profit is. So just say if the profit was £50,000 a year, then this would be a bit of a bargain. If the business was making a loss, why are you spending £88,000 of business, which is losing money, and the net assets are only worth 52,000 quid?